It is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM. And this show brought to you, as always, by First Commonwealth Bank. And our interviews are presented by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. We're down to the final push of the 2020 census, as the deadline is coming up next week, early on next week, in fact. Joining us right now to give us an update on how Indiana County's doing with the census is Josh Krug. Josh, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thank you for having me on this morning.
It's a pleasure to have you on once again. And you're a part of the Complete Count Committee. And how successful is Indiana County right now as far as self-response to the 2020 census?
Well, my office and my team, along with our co-chairs of the Complete Count Committee, Senator Joe Pittman and State Representative Jim Struzzi, have been working for over a year with the Complete Count Committee, comprised of over 50 folks, community leaders from throughout Indiana County. And we have had great success considering the circumstances. Most recently, we just received an update from Rick Buck, who is our partnership specialist with the Census Bureau. And Indiana County, again, compared to our neighbors and regionally, we're right in the middle of the pack. When we look at our self-response rate from 2010, just this past week, we're still 0.6% away from that 65.4% goal that we're trying to get to from 2010. But again, you got to consider the circumstances at hand. And it's quite evident to us that the IUP student population and their self-response is not been up to par, so to speak. So all things considered, we are doing better than the state of Pennsylvania on average. And again, we are doing better than a lot of our neighbors. And I'm happy with the work that we've done. It is because of the work of the Complete Count Committee and getting the word out that we have been able to get the self-response that we have.
But to be less than a percentage point away from that final self-response rate from 2010, that's got to feel good.
Well, yeah, and let me put it into perspective as well. I mentioned about Indiana IUP. Indiana Borough, unfortunately, still is still 12% below their response rate from 2010. And Indiana Borough being a large segment of our population, that's bringing our overall percentage down. And unfortunately, it's because we have a large college community here, a large university located here, and under the circumstances with COVID, the self-response is very, very difficult in terms of reaching the students. But I do have, good news that we're still working with the Census Bureau and all of our local partners in White Township, Indiana Borough, IUP, and the local landlords association to ensure that those students do ultimately get counted. They're just not reflected in the self-response right now.
All right, so the work is still being put in, and those census forms are still coming in. That was just that one snapshot that was sent to you and to us, actually, as well, was just from... It looks like from September 17th, so
yes,
a few days old. So more stuff's coming in by the time the deadline comes. That 0.6% could be down to 0 or maybe over 1.
Absolutely, and it's been a key milestone for us that we've been looking at is just trying to do as good or better as we did do in 2010, and we were on track to really shatter that number. But then, of course, COVID did come along, and we've dealt with it accordingly and adapted as necessary. And, we're working to partner with the Census Bureau to support that complete count. Now, they will still be out in the community, obviously, for folks who don't self-respond. They'll be visiting homes and et cetera, but that will be done as well. Mm-hmm. So we are encouraging everybody to get their responses in, because if they don't get that visit from the Census Bureau in time, we're trying to make sure that every person in Indiana County that should be counted as part of the 2020 census is in fact counted here. Because as we talked about before, Josh, pretty much every time that I'm on with you guys, we talk about how it's tied to funding in all aspects of life, from transportation to education to health care, and then it's also directly tied to the apportionment numbers in Congress.
Mm-hmm, definitely, and we want to be able to keep our apportionment and not lose any representation in the U.S. House or in the U.S. House. So that is very important. As you mentioned, the money that we receive for the roads, transportation, health issues, even that goes a long way too, and that's going to be for the next 10 years. I mean, people don't I'm wondering if people get the gravity of this, that it's a 10-year cycle. Once these numbers are locked in, they're locked in for 10 years.
The census, the decennial census, because the U.S. Census Bureau does have operations all the time. Every year they do things like the American Community Survey, et cetera, which are not as broad as the census. The actual decennial census is the largest peacetime operation of the United States federal government.
Wow.
And it is once every 10 years. I believe this is only the 25th time or so that 23rd, something like that this has been done. 1790 was the first census. So there's not many things that have only been done that many times in the history of our country. And it is a really big deal. It's critically important. And I just want everybody to know, I got to reinforce that it's confidential. Your responses are actually, think of them as being kept in a vault, basically, for 72 years.
Yeah.
After 72 years, those responses, which are all general in nature anyway, regarding your race and your gender and your maybe your income and your occupation and that type of stuff. Nothing that is extremely private information that you would necessarily want to keep private, but I can assure you that it will be kept private for 72 years, and then it does get released. But the general data we use as planners and geographers, as researchers at universities, at IUP, for students in grade school, for their research as well. This data that is collected and developed by the Census Bureau is critically important for those purposes as well. So getting the count accurate is critically important, and we are trying to do everything we can to work with the Census Bureau and all these local partners here, to boost up that count.
You're listening to Indiana in the Morning. I'm Josh Woodison. We're talking with Josh Krug of the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee for Indiana County. Mr. Krug is with the Office of Planning and Development as well. Taking a look at the numbers, and I'm taking a look at the individual municipalities right now. Looks like a good chunk of those numbers are still behind schedule, if you will pardon the expression, with looks like some areas still under where they need to be from where they were at the last census. I think trying to see where mine is. I do see Center Township is ahead of schedule at 5.8% above the rate from 2010. But at Armagh Borough, I mean, that's a big jump right there. I mean, we're seeing a jump of 63.7%. What would you attribute that to?
Well, yeah, there are some anomalies in some respects, or some things that you do need to look at how to attribute, why such a large increase would happen. Obviously, Armagh, one of our smallest boroughs or municipalities in Indiana County in terms of geographic size and also population, so it's volatile in terms of those percentages. But also, I think a key to this, Josh, if you look at them, if you look at Ernest Borough, Plumville Borough, a lot of folks there do have P.O. boxes, and in the past, when this is the first time, and I should reinforce this, this is the first time ever that you can respond by phone and by internet online, versus in the past you had to do the paper form. You still can do the paper form, but this time with the online option and the phone option, I think a lot of these folks who had P.O. boxes that maybe didn't get anything in the mail initially, that didn't get reflected in the self-response in the past, are able to be reflected in the self-response. Now, I do see all the way on the other end, though, a place like Glen Campbell, it's basically in the opposite situation. So some of these characteristics are hard to understand as to why they may have occurred, but I think that that's probably the case. Now, in a place like Center Township, though, we need to really credit Center Township and the East and West Wheatfield Township, places that have a pretty sizable population and are reflecting those percentages above where they were in 2010. That shows a real increase in the interest and in the self-response from those 2010 numbers. And again, looking at these, Josh, you can see Indiana Borough and White Township, where those large student populations are still kind of, pardon my phrasing, but, are bringing our numbers down a little bit. But I don't attribute that to a lack of effort on the township or the borough or our complete count committee. But in fact, I think that's a reflection of that student population that we discussed.
I think it should be noted that the Complete Count Committee has received a lot of help from the municipality governments, whether it be the township supervisors or the borough council members or the school districts or even the county government as well has been a big help to this campaign.
Absolutely. Our complete count, and this is an opportunity to thank and to credit them. So I appreciate you allowing for that, Josh, that our complete count committee was comprised of subcommittees from the education sector, from a specific subcommittee for Indiana area, which was White Township and IUP and Indiana Borough folks, the business community, social services, and agriculture, and also government outside of the Indiana area. So we had, Mr. Ron Ivanko from down in Blairsville. We had a leader that was selected by each of the subcommittees for each subcommittee. So we had Ron Ivanko for the municipalities. We had Doug Berry from the Conservation District for the agriculture. We had Mark Hilliard from the Chamber of Commerce representing the business community. We had folks from the school districts. Mike Vukovic was representing Indiana area and was the head of that subcommittee. Stephanie Dunlap has been a great help from Indiana Borough, leading up that subcommittee. And then I can't forget Mr. Kevin Laser with our Career Link leading up the social services. And we had partnership with Aging Services and with ICAP and I can't list them all. I don't have time to literally.
Yeah.
But I do need to thank them all. And it has been a big lift. We've been working over a year together on this. And we did have to make adaptations, obviously due to COVID. But I did receive word from our partnership specialist that we were, in fact, if not his, I shouldn't say best, but his most active and most engaged complete count committee out of the 10 or so that he serves. He said that we were certainly one of them, if not, his number one committee. And he may tell that to all of them, but I was happy to hear it.
Definitely. It does feel good to hear that. All right, there's still time. People have until Monday, right?
People do, yeah. People have through September 30th, actually.
September 30th, yeah.
To complete the census, and they can go to 2020census.gov. They can go to ICOPD.org. That's our website for our office, the Indiana County Office of Planning and Development, and there's links there and information about the census as well. There's a phone number they can call, or they can complete the paper form as well.
All right. Josh, thanks very much. We're right up against the mark, but thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. Really, really appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks again to Josh Krug of the Indiana County Office of Planning and Development for joining us on Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank. Our interview is presented by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people.